Episode 132 of Mastering Local Marketing. He's Matt Hansen. Matt, how are you?
I am good.
Digital marketing professor at Purdue Northwest here in Hammond, Indiana. I'm Jim Diedla, owner of WJOB Radio, the podcast network, and then, of course, Heartland Sports Network. And we talk about your business, your small to medium-sized business, or your local marketing of any size, really. Most small business owners are putting time and money into marketing without a clear way to judge whether it is working. In this episode of MLM, we simply ask how to evaluate results by focusing on the numbers and signals that actually matter. We talk about awareness, traffic, leads, conversion, customer acquisition, repeat business, revenue impact, in a way that is practical and easy to apply. This episode helps small business owners move from guessing to understanding so they can stop wasting effort on tactics that feel productive but do not lead to growth. This is a tough one, man.
It's not, because watch this. We're going to wake our producer up over there. Ready for this?
She's been here for producing for 4 hours or so.
No, I'm working on my own podcast as I'm listening to all the marketing tactics.
That's a great lead-in for what I'm going to ask you, right?
So, okay.
Yeah, so we are, you have a $500 budget to promote your podcast, right? Mm-hmm. So just to let you know, I teach a class where they have to develop a podcast. They have to do the owned social media side. They have to do paid social media or some kind of paid advertising and do a lot of SEO work on understanding what people are looking for. So you've been given $500 to promote your podcast.
Yes.
Okay. So have you built your commercial yet?
No, that is what I'm going to do today. But I do know that when building the commercial, let me do that. When building the commercial, I have to be able to. It's like any commercial. You get the attention grabber, then you get all your information, and then you get kind of like that ending where it's like, here, yes, listen to all these different places. But the main aspect is that hook, that attention grabber, because you don't have that, people are just going to be like, okay, skip. Nope, I don't want to hear it. And then also being able to fill in the attention grabber with keywords as well as making it within that 30 seconds or however long you do it for.
Are you learning from his class?
Yes. It's funny. It's just like I sit in class. I don't really say much, but I'm like listening. And I'm just like, okay, so I got to do this and this and this. Like there's checklist in my head of every single thing. So I'm just like, yep. And then I learn from here.
Well, I mean,
I get two classes basically.
Just two. Anyway, we don't really talk about behind the scenes stuff, but this podcast network is nascent. It's new. And a 22-year-old senior in college is running it. And then Matt Hansen, the digital marketing professor, us three went to a podcasting conference like 8-10 months ago, and we all got the bug.
Yeah.
And now Matt is teaching that as kind of the exit course out of your business undergrad. And it is the weirdest thing because through osmosis, I'm learning from her what you're teaching in your class, and we're applying it directly to our podcast network.
Right. Well, and it's funny because we have all of these different podcasts we have 10 different podcasts that have gone through this program, and one of them came in this week and they wanted to brag. And I said, okay, brag. And, podcasts will rank anywhere from the top podcasts in the world to roughly around 4.5 million in a number, right? So we keep a clear eye of where people are. Like we can look at downloads, but if you have a very small market, right? So let's say you're talking to 10 people in the world that have some specialty and that's your podcast versus talking about the NCAA, March Madness finals that are going to be happening on Monday. You're going to have two distinct audiences, one that is drastically larger than the other. So when we compare, and this is what we talk about in class, is that we can't compare apples to apples with that because they're two different audiences. So what we do is we look at the SEO of it. And when we say that, what we're meaning is we can look at the ranking, we can look at the keywords in these podcasts, and we can understand their ranking globally in terms of visibility and all these other things. Well, when we start talking about their visibility in class, it's always 300 and some thousand in the world, right? And that's where they rank in each one of them. But one of them came in this week and said, we're 100,000 something. And so they jumped 260,000 points in the last 2 weeks or last week, whatever it was. And they were so excited. And I said, all right, that's amazing. Now let's break it down. Let's understand what's happening. And that's what we're talking about today is like, are you measuring the right things, right? So if you're measuring downloads, is that really where you want to be? Is that the biggest thing? So, and I'm not going to announce any kind of downloads for what we have here in this podcast, but we've doubled in size in the amount of downloads in the last 60 days, right? So we are actually growing at an astronomical rate, which I'm excited to see. I'm glad people are getting real value. We're tracking all of these metrics. We're seeing how many people have seen our podcast, how many people have clicked on our podcast, and how many people have actually listened to the podcast. So we've got our own funnel that we look at, and I keep track of that. If you walk into my office, you will see the numbers, the statistics of that funnel for the last year. And it's funny, my boss at the university walks in, and he's always like, he thinks it's dollars, and he doesn't realize that it's that we're talking about like physical people and all of that. So, because I'm always writing dollars of things we're bringing in for grants and everything else. But what I'm saying is I'm noticing trends happening. Like the awareness is going up, but maybe our conversion is going down a little bit. Well, obviously if I go out to 350 million people across the United States, not everyone's going to be interested in small business marketing. So what we're talking about today is really kind of understanding what are the metrics? What are the things that you need to pay attention to? So from our class perspective, you're about to run that $500 audio campaign that runs on podcasts and runs on streaming. What are you going to measure to understand whether or not it's working? That's my question.
I
haven't taught them that part yet.
I gotta remember that part. I think if anything, you measure. I'm sure there is. I did own marketing strategies, and every single aspect is exiting my brain. But depending on what you pick, I think I'm looking at is like website traffic. Mm-hmm. So you can look to see where it goes and the CPM.
Okay. So obviously, when you are doing Audio Go, which is one of the platforms that you guys are running on, the CPM typically is roughly around $18 to $25 CPM. Okay, so just to let you know. And what we're talking about, CPM is cost per 1,000 impressions, 1,000 times your ad has shown. So the way to look at this is you're not necessarily, if you're talking about clicks, you're not going to be able to, they're doing podcasts, so you can't measure how many times somebody went over to Apple because you don't have any pixel data on Apple's platform, and you don't know how many times they went over to Spotify if that's the link that you're giving them, right? Or you don't know any of this stuff, so you got to get creative about it. And one of the things that I was telling them the other day, a few students, was, okay, do you understand your numbers now? So do you understand how much you're growing every single month or every single episode? How many people, how many people downloaded? How many people are watching? How listen? Do they listen through the whole thing? All of these different metrics that are out there. And you can take your historical performance, let's say for the last couple months, and understand where you should be going into, we crossed into April. It's April, 2nd, right? Happy birthday to my brother. But it's April 2nd. So by May 1st, you should have another month of data, and you should see, if you're running a campaign for $500, you should see a drastic uptick in your listens if that's working, right? So if you maintain the course, let's say you have, let's put in e-commerce, right? Somebody that's selling something. Let's say you sold 100 orders this month, and last month you sold 90 orders. Your expectation would be 110 orders this month. But if you're running the advertising and you're not doing any kind of tracking whatsoever other than just looking at the numbers, and you spent $500 and it goes to 130, you can kind of make those clarifications to say, well, I don't know that it's directly tied, but we did see a significant jump. So let's do another 500 next month and see what happens. And if it jumps again to 150 or 160 or 170, you're going to start to see things are happening. So you're bucking the trend, right? The average that's going across there. And that's what I'm trying to teach them, is that you won't always have all the numbers, but there are hints along the way based on what you're doing that you can identify certain metrics that make sense to show that there's growth, right? So I hear it all the time. People are always like, oh, well, we had, 15,000 likes. I'm like, okay, is that relevant? What's your goal, right? So we all have these different goals in life, and I think you and I are both business owners, and we want to sell more. We want to get more dollars in. I could care less if 15,000 people like a post I put out there if I'm not selling anymore, if I'm not making any more money, right? So our time is really valuable. But I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, I got 15,000 likes. And I go, well, did it boost your sales? Well, I don't know. So you're in the business for likes, not to make more money. And that's a conversation that starts to kind of shake some people, right? You've had those conversations.
Well, I think what you're really talking about is like almost like vanity likes, right, versus effectiveness of the marketing, and what are you going to measure in that. And I think there is a parallel here, in that we built a sports network that is growing, and our number one, we learned a lot in building this thing and made a lot of mistakes, and now we're transferring over and we're building a podcast network. And one of the three main mistakes that we made with that sports network was not tracking, not following the numbers, not having any idea what our customer acquisition cost is, or, should we be doing some advertising. We were just grabbing growth and going without stopping to just look at the numbers. Now you're here and Adriana's starting the podcast network and taking your class. And all right, we just finished March. Who had what numbers? Put it on a spreadsheet. Let's look at it, and let's start numbers from the beginning. So I think for the small to medium-sized business, before you do anything on your business and what's going on in the effectiveness of your marketing, you have to commit to following the numbers consistently. Have I listened to you well enough to regurgitate that?
How often do you check your numbers?
Now, in the last 2 months, I probably check my numbers more than I did in 5 years.
So this podcast that we're running, right? So obviously it has taken off. It's probably the largest podcast that we run here. And honestly, I check the numbers probably anywhere between 5 and 10 times a day.
Well, I check the numbers that many times on my Substack. You can get my Substack at Jim Deedlow. It's not about marketing. It's about running media. But yes, and you need to show me that so that I now have another thing I can be really compulsive about. But is that a bad thing? Is it a bad thing that you own a business and you want to know that number up to the minute right now? Absolutely not. I think it's a good thing.
Right. So I understand just by watching the numbers every single day. I know if it's Thursday, I know that we're going to get a drastic uptick in numbers today. Tomorrow will drop a little bit. Saturday and Sunday are always the lowest because people are, weekend. We're talking business, right? Monday is always through the roof. We release every Monday and Thursday, and then through the week it does kind of this little, kind of swing thing to Thursday. But when I look at it, and I can tell you, Adriana and I were talking the other day. I did a refresh in. I forget what day it was, but I did a refresh.
Oh, it was like the 31st.
It was it was 6, 7 o'clock at night, and in a matter of 5 minutes, it jumped 100 and some downloads, and I'm like, what is going on? And it's interesting to watch how you just get these drastic shifts in different things. And I think from a business owner, if you're not understanding what's going on out there and monitoring these types of things, you're going to miss it, right? And you're going to miss the opportunity. So we're learning by watching these patterns to know, okay, well, we figured out that Monday and Thursday are our release days, and we release them at 6 a.m. because we figure, okay, well, if you're on the East Coast, that's 7 a.m. If you're in the Central Time, it's 6 a.m. And then if you go all the way over to the West Coast, I mean, you're talking 4 a.m. So it's to get the day started and whatever else. But we realize we have listeners all over the world, but we know we're listening to the data to understand when we need to release these things because it's elevated the numbers. And I know we're relating this to the podcast, but if you look at it from your business standpoint, you understand these swings, these patterns, you'll make more money because you'll know the expectations and you'll learn from it, and you'll be able to put that into play in new efforts, right? So if you know that Monday is always going to be a big day, what else can you do to drive more traffic that day? Like, that's when people are really excited to shop with you or to come into your store or whatever it may be. Like, learn from those swings and that data, and honestly, stop tracking the likes, stop tracking that kind of stuff, and start looking for the things that are going to put money in your pocket, because that's why we're all in business to begin with.
So inherent in that process is reaching goals and benchmarks. And if the small to medium-sized person has a business, has all these things, they got to make the product, they got to service the product, they got to, fix whatever problems they were. They got to, all of a sudden they have a chat on their website, and all of a sudden they've got like 5 immediate chats. You got to hit all these things. And then they got to go out and say, all right, I am going to spend $500. I think that's a good number for this month. It seemed to work a little bit last month. But how do I figure out where I need to be?
Well, I mean, again, I think we talked about it last week on the podcast. We did talk about it because we were talking about trading, right? So you never go into more than 3 trades, and marketing is kind of the same way. You never go into more places than you can pay attention to. I think I referenced somebody having 15 children, which is great. You got a great big family, but you don't know what's going on with all of those children at all different times. So the things that you pay attention to get noticed and grow. And from a marketing standpoint, if you're not measuring the right things, if you're measuring likes, yeah, maybe your likes will continue to grow, but your business is not going to grow necessarily. There's not that direct correlation, so to speak. I mean, you can be an internet sensation with your Instagram account where you're getting tons of likes, but if you're not directly tying it back to a product or service, you're not making money. Where do we go from there?
So so you're getting into the nitty gritty of setting that benchmark. Yes, all right. I'm going to spend the money. I'm going to look at the numbers, and maybe it's a funny thing or whatever. And I am getting a lot of people to watch it. When do you know to make it a tie back to your product or service, and not just an infomercial if it's a video, or not just like I write my Substack and I just jam little bitty things in there about it because I don't want to be selling anything really on it, but I'm not going to write it over and over without having at least some impact on my services. How do you know that fine line?
I think you have to ask the question, are you a creator or are you a business person? That's the first question, right? So if you're a creator, what is your end goal? Is it just to put content out there? That's fine, right? So we put this content out because I have so many people that had asked me over and over and over again, I wish I could take your class. Okay, here we go. Right?
Yeah.
Welcome to class.
It's demanding.
This is the 130 something of class.
Right.
Welcome, students.
So isn't it demanding?
No, it is. But what I've realized, and I caught myself doing this. I was just like, wait a minute. I'm taking every single thing I'm learning in this class, but I'm not applying it to my actual podcast. I'm applying it to the podcast network. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not getting graded on the podcast network. I'm getting graded on my podcast. Let me lock into that a little bit more. Because I was taking all those things. I was like, okay, well, let's make all of these other podcasts that for the longest time, we were just like, hey, the host or whoever, can you give us just like a short description of what your podcast is about and put it in there? And then I realized, I was like, that's not going to work.
And so your class is very demanding, and I want to make sure that everybody, the small to medium-sized business, his class is 10 times more demanding than what we're asking you to do. We're asking you to just focus on what your spend is accomplishing. That's it.
Yeah.
And then after you get some data, now you can set some really good benchmarks. Is that a good progression?
Yes. So again, keep your finger on the pulse, understand what's going on, check your numbers over and over and over again, right? So every time we walk into class, I ask them for their pod SEO number, which is the ranking system. And then I look at their downloads every single week to see if they're growing. I listen to their podcasts, and I can see the growth in them already, right? So you listen to episode 1 versus episode 9, and they're drastically different. Even if you listen to us, I mean, you go back to episode 1, I'm sure we were garbage back then, and maybe we're still garbage today. I don't know.
You know what? I listened to like number 22, and I'm like, God, what a horrible pace. We did not have pace. You know what I mean? And I don't know when it kicked in, but I would say it kicked in. It took 50 podcasts to get a pace. But anyways.
But that's what you're saying. Like, just start tracking, start looking at something. So again, I look at analytics on my phone. I have little folders on my phone. One of them is called marketing. And it's literally, so you click in there and it's all the apps that you need to reference, right? So if I'm, so for example, I have to send out a massive email to all the digital marketing competition teams, which is, probably 1,400 people that are waiting for my email to go out. It may go out tonight. It may go out tomorrow, right?
But 1,400 people or 1,400 teams?
No, it's 1,400 people. There's roughly around 300 teams. But, I can check at any given moment how that thing was growing. So as entries are coming in or as teams are registering, I open my phone, I look at it, and I go, okay, we're at this right now. And it's every single day I open up my phone in that marketing folder and I look at all of the different metrics just to understand where we are. You can liken this to, let's say you have, your checking account, right? And you're at $500 in your checking account. How often are you going to check that checking account to make sure that you still have money in there? Pretty often, right? It's the same idea. You want to understand what metrics, what's happening in there. And you start to learn patterns by doing this. So take anything that you're doing marketing related and find the app, find something that you can track on your phone and just make it part of your routine. So I sit down in the morning and, we get up at 5:30 in the morning and have our coffee. And my wife's looking through social media and I'm literally checking all of my metrics and everything for all my clients and everything else. And, it's open it up, go app to app to app to app. And then by the time I'm done with that, maybe I'll jump over to social and see what's going on. But that's what I mean. Like, understand your entire goal is to make more money. So don't look at the vanity metrics. Look at the things that actually matter. Growth, right? Are you seeing trends? Is there upticks in things? Do you, if you're spending $500 and you've tripled the amount of sales that you had last month, okay, let's go to 1,000 or 1,500 and see what happens, right? So it's paying attention is the number one thing, but most people just put it on autopilot and forget about it, and they don't ever track anything. And I sit down with 90% of companies, and I ask them, all right, what are we tracking? And like, we're not. And I go, how are we not tracking? So, like, I will literally sit down with a company and say, all right, if you're tracking this, I will put up my own money or my own time to make you successful because you are so far ahead of everyone else. Like, I can guarantee we're going to get to here because you have all of this data. And most people just don't track, and they look at these vanity metrics of likes and, I had 3 people love my comment on. Who cares, right? Like, let's get to what really matters.
What really matters also is that if you want your small or medium-sized business looked at and basically some free consulting, you can do it how?
Yeah, if you go to the show notes on our podcast on Apple and Spotify and all of them, you'll see a link in there. So all you have to do is sign up. Every month we are pulling one person, and I will do a 30-minute free consult with them. So we had a few people sign up after the last one. Honestly, it's just a free Zoom. I'll sit down and have a conversation with you. We'll highlight some things that you can fix and maybe celebrate some of the things you're doing as well. But it's in the show notes, so link there. Just click it, and all I ask for is your name and your email, and I will get back to you, and we'll go from there.
She is Adriana Alvarez. If you want your own podcast, get a hold of Adriana, 2 N's, at WJOB1230.com. Thanks a lot. to Adriana for producing. Thanks a lot to Matt Hansen, but mostly thanks to you for watching and or listening. And until next time, we'll see you later.